I'm Natalie Lambresi, and I work with the young adults here on the Vista campus. And today, I want to talk about the goodness that comes out of seasons that are full of loss and grief. I think a lot of times we tend to not want to be found in those seasons. They're the places that we'd rather skip ahead out of. They're really uncomfortable to be in the middle of. And they seem like almost like a painful waste of time. Like we wish that they weren't happening to us. And where I want to start is in Matthew chapter 5. And just before that, Jesus had been ministering to crowds, and people had been bringing him. They're sick, they're diseased, and they're demon possessed, and he was doing miracles. But then it says in the beginning of chapter 5 that seeing the crowds, he went up to the mountain, and this is what he did. So in response to the pain, the suffering, the hurting, and the weakness and brokenness that he saw, he went and he gave this sermon. In verse 2 of Matthew chapter 5, it says, "Then he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets who were before you.'" I think we would love to not have ourselves found in this list. Poor, mourning, weak. We want to be found as the winners. We want to even appear as though we have it together and we don't have need. And I think it takes sometimes going through those seasons where we're forced to reveal that there is deep weakness within us for God to be able to come in and show us the beauty of his provision and his kindness and his goodness. To be on the receiving end. We want to be called blessed, but sometimes blessed is found in the dirt, in the blood, in the sweat, and the tears. And just in that we can be like Paul, what he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, that he finds in his weakness that God's grace is sufficient for him, for his power is made perfect in weakness. Paul says, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." I think a lot of times in good seasons, we miss out on the power of God because we're so comfortable, because we're so wrapped up in maybe even appearing like we have no brokenness or weakness. Coming through a season of a lot of pain and suffering myself, I feel like at times I'd rather just skip over that season. I'd rather hit rewind and then go a different way and have it not have played out the way that it did. But then in the season, I've gotten to see God's power, his nearness, and his presence in a way that I've never experienced in my life. And it might be something that I've even craved and envied in other people's lives and seen the results of, not knowing that it was probably through the struggle and grief and mourning that they probably forged that deep intimacy with God and got to see his power show up. So if you're in the middle of a season of trial, of heartache, of brokenness or pain, I just want to encourage you and remind you again that being found in weakness is where Jesus called us blessed, where he sees our need and he promises to meet us. And I also want to challenge you. I know for many of us, we see suffering and we say, "God, I hope that doesn't happen to me." And I don't want to make us gluttons for punishment to just say we should then welcome pain and suffering and say, "Bring it on." But I think our mindset can kind of shift. If ultimately what we want most is to see God's power and his presence in our lives, we might have to change our values from instead of wanting more comfort in our lives, to actually welcoming whatever God may bring, whatever he may allow, because it promises that his presence will be there and that his blessing will be there for us.